Keanu Reeves stepped out of the black car with a calm smile on his face. The cold Italian air brushed against his jacket as he looked up at the glowing lights of San Siro Stadium. It was his first time there, and the huge football stadium looked even bigger in person than it had in pictures. Cameras flashed the moment he appeared, and a few fans called his name from behind the barriers. He gave a soft wave and a polite nod, walking slowly toward the VIP entrance. People rushed around him: security, event staff, organizers, but Keanu moved like he always did, quiet and respectful, almost shy. He wasn't used to this kind of spotlight anymore. Sure, he was a world-famous actor, but this was football. This was Italy. And this was the San Siro. A different kind of passion filled the air. The event was a charity football match, meant to raise money for children's hospitals. Several celebrities and football legends had been invited. Keanu didn't think twice when he was asked. He loved helping where he could, and honestly, the idea of standing on the same field where legends had played sounded exciting. He had been told that David Beckham might come too, and that made it even more special. As he walked through the VIP gate, a few event photographers shouted his name. "Keanu, over here." He smiled, posed for a second, and continued walking. But something was off. He felt it. People weren't cheering the way he expected. Some looked confused. Others whispered. A few even frowned. In the VIP lounge, he grabbed a bottle of water and looked around. Most of the guests seemed friendly. Some waved, others smiled, but in the corner, a group of men in team scarves stood with crossed arms. They were clearly fans of AC Milan, and their eyes followed Keanu like he didn't belong. Keanu tried to ignore it. Maybe they didn't recognize him, or maybe they were just cold. He told himself not to overthink. He was just here to support a good cause, to maybe kick a ball, and to show love. Then, one of the Milan fans muttered loud enough to hear, "What's this? A movie star at San Siro? Is it a joke?" The words weren't aimed directly at him, but they stung. Keanu turned his head slightly. The man didn't even bother to look away. He just shook his head and sipped his drink. Keanu's smile faded for a second, but he nodded politely and walked on. He found a quiet spot near the tunnel that led to the field. From here, he could see the green pitch. It was beautiful. Bright. Under the stadium lights, he watched the players warm up. Some fans in the stands clapped and sang. But something inside him felt heavy now. He thought back to the invite. He hadn't come here for fame. He didn't even know if he would be playing, or just making an appearance. He had no ego about it. But now he wondered, was he wrong to come? Was he out of place here? Suddenly, a young boy ran up to him with a football. The boy had curly hair and wore a jersey too big for his size. "Excuse me, are you Keanu Reeves?" Keanu smiled again, softer this time. "Yes, I am. Can you sign my ball?" The boy asked, eyes wide with hope. "Of course," Keanu said, kneeling down to take the ball. The boy looked thrilled. "I saw you in The Matrix," he said proudly. "My dad says you're a legend, even though you're not a football player. I think it's cool you're here." Keanu paused, then looked the boy in the eyes. "That means a lot, thank you." He signed the ball and handed it back. The boy gave a big grin and ran off. For a moment, Keanu felt better. Maybe not everyone thought he was a mistake here. Maybe he just needed to focus on the reason he came, to help, to support, and maybe to enjoy the game. Still, as he stood up again, he heard another voice in the background. "Where's Beckham?" "That's who we came to see. Not some Hollywood clown." It wasn't loud, but it cut deeper than the cold wind. Keanu turned his face toward the field again, keeping his calm expression. He was used to being misunderstood. He had dealt with critics, fake rumors, online hate. But something about this moment felt different. This was supposed to be a night of joy. Instead, a storm had started to form quietly in his chest. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. That wasn't his way. He just stood there, alone under the stadium lights, waiting for the game to start, hoping things would get better. And deep inside he wondered, would David Beckham really show up? Because maybe, just maybe, things would change if he did. Keanu stayed near the tunnel for a while, pretending to look at his phone, even though he wasn't doing anything on it. His fingers were cold, but not from the weather. It was that uncomfortable feeling like he didn't belong. Like he had walked into a party where nobody wanted him. More guests were arriving. Some were ex-football players, some were local celebrities. The announcer's voice echoed in the stadium, reading out the lineup of the match. A few names got loud cheers. Others, small claps. When Keanu's name was called, there was a pause in the crowd. Then a few polite claps. But mixed in were some confused voices. Keanu who? The movie guy? What's he doing in a football match? Keanu heard it all, even though he tried not to. His ears picked up the tone, half confused, half annoyed. He had expected some confusion, maybe even surprise. But not this. Not the coldness. Back in the lounge, the group of Milan fans was still watching him. One of them laughed loudly when Keanu's name was announced, shaking his head. "You believe this?" the man said. "We come for football, and they give us John Wick." The others chuckled, raising their beer bottles. Keanu walked away from the lounge and moved closer to the hallway that led to the players' locker rooms. He didn't want to be around people anymore. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. He had flown all the way from the US for this event. No big trailer, no red carpet. Just him, a small suitcase, and a willingness to support a good cause. He didn't ask for any special treatment. And now, he wondered if his name was just used for media attention. A staff member came over and gently tapped his shoulder. "Mr. Reeves, you okay? You need anything?" Keanu smiled politely. "I'm good, just getting some air." The man nodded and walked off. Keanu took a deep breath. He looked at the field again. It really was beautiful. The lights, the green grass, the history. San Siro was a temple of football. He didn't grow up a football fan, but he respected the game. He respected the passion behind it. But now he could feel the weight of being an outsider dock behind him. Two teenagers passed by. One looked at him and whispered, "That's the guy from the movies." The other one replied, "Why's he here though? He can't even play." Keanu closed his eyes for a second. He didn't blame them. He understood how passionate football fans were. This was their world. And maybe to them, he was just some actor walking into their sacred space. But it still hurt that he didn't come to play like a pro. He came to support, to be part of something positive. But now, it felt like no one wanted him there. He thought of leaving, quietly, without making a scene. He could just tell the organizers he wasn't feeling well. They'd understand. But then he remembered the little boy from earlier, the one who asked for his autograph. That boy was happy to see him. That boy saw him as someone worth meeting. And that meant something. Still, Keanu knew this night wouldn't be easy. Just then, another announcement came from the stadium speakers. The crowd got louder. Keanu heard excited voices all around. He didn't catch the words at first, but then he heard it clearly. "David Beckham has arrived." The cheers exploded. The stadium came alive. Even the Milan fans in the VIP area stood up and clapped. Beckham was football royalty, and everyone loved him. Italy, England, the world. Keanu looked toward the tunnel. Security guards rushed over as cameras turned to the side entrance. Beckham's arrival had stolen all the attention in seconds. Keanu stayed in his corner. He didn't want to get in the way. But he felt something else now, a strange mix of hope and nervousness. Would Beckham even notice him? They had only met once before, years ago at a charity dinner. Beckham had been kind, warm, respectful. But Keanu wasn't sure if the football Star even remembered him. He waited, staying quiet, hands in his pockets. Suddenly, the laughter from the Milan fans grew louder again. "Now this is who we came to see." One of them shouted, "No more Hollywood," another joked. Keanu lowered his head and gave a tired smile. He didn't want trouble. He just wanted to be invisible now, but deep inside, something was changing. Part of him wanted to see Beckham, just to feel like someone was on his side. Just to see if anyone would treat him like he mattered. As more people crowded around the tunnel entrance to welcome Beckham, Keanu stayed back, watching, waiting. And wondering what would happen next, because somehow he felt that Beckham's arrival might change everything. Keanu Reeves stood near the tunnel, trying to stay out of sight. He didn't want to take up space or cause attention. The cheers for David Beckham were still echoing through the stadium. Fans chanted Beckham's name with pride. Every camera pointed toward the famous footballer as he waved and smiled at the crowd. Keanu stayed silent. He was happy Beckham had arrived. The crowd was excited, and it brought energy to the charity match. But at the same time, Keanu felt like a shadow in the corner. People barely noticed him now. And those who did weren't being kind. A group of older men wearing scarves walked by. One of them looked straight at Keanu and said in a mocking tone, "What's wrong, Wick? Forgot your gun?" The others laughed. Keanu gave a soft smile and looked away. He didn't reply. He didn't want trouble. But deep down, the words hurt more than he let anyone see. It wasn't just one joke. Since he arrived, it had been one cold look after another. One rude comment, then another. Some people acted like he didn't belong here. Like being an actor made him less than the others. He wasn't trying to be a footballer. He wasn't pretending to be a star on the field. He just came to help, to show support. But now it felt like that wasn't enough. A security guard walked past and gave him a confused glance. "You're one of the guests, right?" the guard asked. Keanu nodded gently. "Yes, I was invited." The guard looked unsure but nodded back. "All right, just making sure." Keanu's heart sank a little. Even the staff didn't seem to recognize him. Maybe the fans weren't the only ones who thought he didn't fit in. He tried to stay strong, tried to focus on the cause. But it wasn't easy when people around him were treating him like a joke. Then it got worse. From the upper stands, a man shouted loudly. The sound echoed across the section. "Send Keanu back to Hollywood." Laughter followed. A few phones pointed at him, recording. A group of fans nearby started clapping, not for him, but in sarcasm. Keanu stood frozen. He wasn't used to this kind of attention. Sure, he had faced bad press before. People made fun of celebrities all the time. But this felt personal. It was like they wanted him to feel small. He looked around, hoping maybe someone would speak up for him. But no one did. Even those who didn't laugh just stayed quiet, pretending they didn't hear. For a moment, Keanu thought about walking out. Just leaving. No one would miss him. And maybe that was better. He didn't want to be where he wasn't welcome. But before he could move, something unexpected happened. From the players' tunnel, a familiar voice called out, "Keanu." He turned. There, walking toward him with a calm and confident smile, was David Beckham. Beckham was dressed casually, but everyone noticed him. Even with the noise of the stadium, people turned their heads as he walked. He wasn't just a footballer, he was a legend. But right now, Beckham wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking straight at Keanu. Keanu gave a small nod, unsure. Beckham reached him and gave him a light handshake followed by a half hug. "Glad you made it, man," Beckham said warmly. "They told me you were coming." Keanu smiled, surprised. "Thanks, good to see you." Beckham stepped back and looked around. "Quite the crowd tonight." Keanu chuckled, trying to hide his pain. "Yeah, loud too." Beckham gave him a look like he understood more than Keanu had said. "You all right?" he asked. Keanu hesitated. "Just Feeling a little out of place, Beckham nodded slowly. I get it, but you're not alone. And just like that, with one kind sentence, something shifted inside Keanu. Someone saw him. Someone respected him. And not just anyone. David Beckham. Suddenly, Keanu didn't feel so small anymore. But even though Beckham's words helped, the insult from the stands still echoed in Keanu's mind. The people didn't want him there. At least not yet. But maybe that could still change. Because now, he wasn't standing alone. Keanu walked beside David Beckham through the tunnel and onto the edge of the field. The lights were bright, almost blinding, and the cold air carried the loud energy of the crowd. Beckham smiled and waved to the fans, who cheered even louder. Some held signs with his name. Others sang his old football chants. The whole stadium felt like it was alive for him. Keanu stayed a step behind. He wasn't angry. He wasn't jealous. But he felt small again, like a guest who didn't know where to sit. Beckham was in his world now, the world of football. And Keanu was just visiting. A few photographers moved closer. One of them shouted, "Beckham, look this way." Another called, "Keanu, together please." Beckham gently touched Keanu's shoulder. "Let's give them one good shot." Keanu smiled, and they posed for a few pictures. Beckham even threw an arm around him in a friendly way. The cameras clicked, and for a moment, everything seemed fine. But as soon as the photos were taken, the same group of Milan fans in the front row started up again. "Stick to acting, Reeves. Where's your script? Keanu can't even kick a ball." Their voices were sharp and mean, and they made sure he could hear. Beckham turned his head slightly, but said nothing for now. Keanu's face didn't change, but something inside him tightened. The players were warming up on the field. Some of them looked at Keanu and gave small nods. They had seen his movies. They knew who he was, but they didn't approach him. He wasn't one of them. A staff member walked over with 2 sets of jerseys. "Here you go, Mr. Beckham, Mr. Reeves," he said. Beckham took his jersey with ease. Number 7. It looked like it belonged to him. Keanu looked at his jersey. Number 11. He held it in his hands for a second. "Is this really for me?" he asked the staff member, almost softly. The man nodded. "Yes, sir. You're playing in the second half. Just a short run, don't worry." Keanu nodded again and gave a nervous laugh. All right. He had agreed to this back in LA, but now it felt different. Being on a football field in front of thousands of fans was not the same as filming a fight scene in a movie. He didn't want to embarrass himself. Or worse, make things worse. He walked with Beckham toward the bench. Other guests were already seated. Some former footballers, actors, and charity organizers. Beckham joined the team to warm up, moving like a natural. His touches were smooth, his presence calm and strong. Keanu sat quietly at the end of the bench. He looked out at the field, then at the crowd. Some fans were smiling, taking pictures. Others looked at him like he didn't belong. He felt alone again. A moment later, a man in a black suit came over and handed him a microphone. "You'll be introduced on the loudspeaker in a few minutes." The man said, "Just say a few words. Something short, positive. It's part of the program." Keanu stared at the mic. He wasn't scared of talking. He had done it 100 times at press events. But this wasn't Hollywood. This was San Siro. He held the mic with both hands. As the announcer called his name, lights turned to his side of the field. A few polite claps echoed across the stadium, but nothing close to what Beckham had received. Keanu stood up slowly, walked a few steps to the sideline, and lifted the mic. "Hello, everyone," he said, his voice quiet but clear. "I'm honored to be here tonight. I know I'm not a footballer. I'm just a guest. But I came here because I care about the children. We're helping, and about this amazing sport that brings people together." He paused. The stadium was still. Some people listened. Some didn't. "I may not know how to score goals," he added with a small smile. but I know how to show up. And I think that matters too." He ended the speech there and handed the mic back. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was honest. He sat back down. The man in the black suit gave him a nod. "That was perfect," he said. But Keanu wasn't sure. He looked up. Some people clapped kindly. Others stayed silent. And that same voice from earlier rang out again from the front row. "Go home, Reeves. This is football." This time, the laugh that followed felt crueler, meaner. Keanu sat still, his jaw tight. He had tried to speak from the heart. He didn't ask for cheers, but he didn't expect hate either. For a moment, he felt like disappearing, but he didn't move. He stayed seated, quiet, waiting, because something inside him said this wasn't over yet. Keanu sat on the bench, holding his jersey in his hands. The noise of the crowd felt distant now, like a wave crashing far away. He wasn't listening to the announcer or the fans or the loud music playing in the stadium. He was inside his own thoughts. He had tried to be strong. He had smiled, stayed calm, even spoke to the crowd with honesty. But the insults kept coming. Every word had hit him like a stone. He didn't come to San Siro to be the center of attention. He came to help, to be part of something good. And yet, the only thing people seemed to care about was that he didn't belong. Beside him, people laughed, talked, took selfies. Everyone seemed relaxed except him. The charity match had started. Beckham was already on the field, passing the ball with smooth skill. The crowd cheered every time he touched the ball. Keanu watched him, amazed by how effortless he looked. Beckham moved like he belonged there. Because he did. Keanu looked down at the grass near his shoes. Then he looked at the number on his jersey again. 11, he whispered to himself. It felt like someone else's shirt. Suddenly, someone called his name. Keanu. He looked up. It was Beckham, jogging toward the sideline, sweat on his face, but smiling. The crowd kept cheering for him, even as he moved off the pitch. Beckham came right to the bench. "You ready?" he asked. Keanu blinked. "Me? Yeah," Beckham said, nodding. "You're up. They're switching players for the second half. Just a short run. Come on." Keanu hesitated. His heart started beating faster. He wasn't scared of running or kicking a ball. He was scared of being laughed at again. Beckham seemed to read his mind. He leaned closer and said quietly, "You don't need to impress anyone. Just enjoy the moment." Keanu took a deep breath, stood up, and pulled the jersey over his head. It felt strange. Soft but heavy, like it carried all the judgment people had thrown at him since he got here. As he stepped toward the field, someone from the Milan fan group shouted again, "Oh no, here comes Mr. Hollywood." Another added, "Don't fall." "Movie man." Laughter followed. Keanu's jaw clenched. His steps slowed, but Beckham turned around and faced the fans. He didn't smile this time. With a sharp hand gesture, he pointed at them. Then he said loudly enough for many to hear, "He's here for charity, just like the rest of us. Show some respect." The group fell silent. People nearby looked at each other. A few fans clapped softly. Keanu heard every word. He looked at Beckham. Beckham gave him a small nod, like saying, "You're not alone." Keanu stepped onto the field. It felt like walking into another world. The grass under his feet, the giant stadium lights above. The sound of the crowd mixed with cheers, claps, and quiet whispers. He moved slowly at first, nervous. A teammate passed him the ball gently. Keanu touched it with his foot, passed it back. Nothing fancy, but it worked. He ran down the sideline. Another pass came his way. He stopped it with both feet, passed again. The crowd watched closely, and something strange began to happen. Some fans clapped. Some even shouted his name this time, not in mockery. "Go Keanu, nice pass, Wick." He smiled without meaning to. For the first time all night, he felt warm inside. Beckham, still on the bench, watched with a calm expression. He wasn't cheering or yelling, just watching, like a friend who had faith. Keanu played for about 10 minutes. He didn't score. He didn't do tricks, but he ran past and tried. And the crowd saw that. Slowly, the energy changed, even. One of the Milan fans, the loudest one from earlier, stood up and clapped after Keanu completed a clean pass. Keanu heard someone behind him say, "He's not bad, actually." When the referee blew the whistle for a short break, Keanu jogged off the field. Sweat on his forehead, chest rising and falling. But this time, he wasn't hiding. He stood tall as he neared the bench. Beckham stood up and clapped for him. "Well done, mate," he said. Keanu laughed lightly. "I didn't fall." Beckham grinned. "Told you. Just enjoy it." Keanu sat back down, heart still racing. He looked around. The stadium no longer felt like a cold place. It felt alive again, but this time, he felt like he was part of it. He had faced the field. He had faced the crowd. And even though he had been insulted, mocked, and doubted, he didn't run away. He stayed. He played. And now, something had changed. Not just in the crowd, but inside himself. The short break ended, and players were back on the field. Keanu sat on the bench again, still breathing a little hard, sweat on his forehead. But this time, his face looked different, calmer, stronger. He had just played 10 minutes on one of the most famous football fields in the world, and he didn't mess up. In fact, a few people had even cheered for him, thought it wasn't about being perfect. It was about trying. He looked over and saw David Beckham giving some advice to a young player on the team. Beckham moved with confidence, but he always spoke gently, kindly. He wasn't just a football legend, he was a leader. Keanu respected that. And more than anything, he was thankful for Beckham's support tonight. The insults hadn't fully stopped, but they had changed. Now when the loud fans made jokes, they were quieter, less cruel. Some had even clapped when Keanu left the field. Earlier, Beckham walked over and sat beside him. "You looked good out there," he said, smiling. Keanu chuckled. "You're too kind." "No, I'm honest," Beckham replied. "You held your own, and that's what matters." Keanu looked at the crowd. "You know, I almost left before you came. I didn't feel welcome." Beckham leaned back, watching. "The match, I could tell. But you stayed. That says everything." Keanu nodded slowly. He didn't need a long speech. Beckham's words were enough. Suddenly, a commotion rose in the front rows of the stadium. A few fans stood up, raising their voices. One man was arguing with a security guard. Cameras turned in that direction. Keanu looked closely. It was the same group of Milan fans that had been mocking him earlier, but something had changed. One of them now pointed at Keanu, and not in anger. "He's all right," the man shouted. "Better than I thought." Some fans around him clapped. A few raised their arms in agreement. One woman even held up her phone, recording herself saying, "Keanu Reeves at San Siro, baby." Keanu blinked. For a second, he didn't know how to react. Beckham grinned beside him. "Tide's turning, mate." A few reporters near the benches started whispering, and one snapped a picture of Keanu. He didn't flinch. He just smiled a little, eyes filled with quiet disbelief. He never wanted to be a hero tonight. He didn't need to be a star. All he had wanted was to support the cause. And somehow, without trying to shine, he had earned respect by being real. The second half of the match was more intense. Players moved faster, and the crowd stayed loud. Beckham was back on the pitch, doing what he did best. Every pass from him was clean, every touch elegant. The man hadn't played professionally in years, but his skill was still sharp. Keanu watched him closely, learning just by looking. Then something happened that made the whole stadium gasp. Beckham was chasing the ball near the sideline when another player slipped and crashed into him. Beckham fell hard, hitting the grass with a thud. The referee blew the whistle. The medics rushed forward. Keanu stood up without thinking. The stadium went quiet as Beckham sat up slowly, holding his side. He gave a thumbs up, showing he was okay. But everyone could see he was in pain. Keanu walked toward the edge of the field as the medics helped Beckham to his feet. Beckham tried to wave it off, but one medic shook his head. "Better to rest now." Beckham agreed and limped toward the bench, helped by two men. Keanu met him halfway. "You all right?" he asked. Beckham gave a tired smile. "I live." As he sat down, the crowd gave a loud cheer and applause for the legend, showing their love. Keanu stood beside him, unsure what to do. Then, one of the assistant coaches called out, "Reeves, you want to jump in again?" Keanu blinked. "Me?" The man nodded. "We're short a player for 5 minutes. You game?" Keanu looked at Beckham, who smiled and said, "Go on, you've got this." Without waiting, Keanu pulled the jersey back on and jogged toward the field. This time when he stepped on the pitch, something was different. People cheered. Not everyone. Not loudly, but enough. "Keanu, go Wick." Even the announcer gave a proud tone. And returning to the pitch, Keanu Reeves. Keanu felt something rise in his chest. Not pride. Not fame. Just joy. The ball came his way again. He passed it cleanly, then he ran. Then he passed again. He wasn't fast. He wasn't strong. But he was there, and he was trying. And that was enough. Keanu was back on the field. His jersey clung to his back, and his hair was slightly wet with sweat. But he didn't care. His legs felt heavy, but his heart felt light. Something had changed inside the stadium, and inside him. This time, he didn't feel like a visitor. He felt like a part of the game. The ball rolled toward him again. A teammate gave him a signal. Keanu controlled the ball carefully, looked up, and passed it straight down the field. It wasn't a fancy move. It wasn't powerful. But it was smooth and correct. The crowd clapped. More people were watching him now. Phones pointed at him. A few fans chanted his name again. What had started as teasing before was now real support. And Keanu could feel it. He glanced toward the bench. Beckham was sitting there, arms folded, watching with a proud smile. Even from far away, Keanu could feel the warmth in his eyes. Then something unexpected happened. The opposing team lost the ball near midfield. One of Keanu's teammates took it and passed it to him, quick and direct. Keanu caught it with both feet, steady and clean. A defender rushed at him fast. The crowd gasped. Keanu panicked for a second, but then remembered what Beckham had said earlier. Just enjoy it. He tapped the ball sideways, dodging the defender, and kicked it forward to another teammate, who dashed straight toward the goal. The crowd rose to their feet. The teammate shot. Goal. The stadium roared. People jumped, clapped, shouted. Music played over the speakers. The team rushed to the scorer and hugged him, but he turned back and pointed at Keanu. That assist was his. And then it happened. The camera zoomed in on Keanu. The announcer said his name with energy. "What?" "A pass from Keanu Reeves." The stadium clapped louder. Beckham stood up from the bench and applauded with both hands. His eyes met Keanu's, and he gave a big thumbs up. Keanu stood still for a second. He didn't know what to do. He had just helped score a goal in San Siro, in front of thousands of people, and they were clapping for him. He laughed openly. Fully, his whole face lit up. He jogged back to his position, giving a small wave to the fans. His fingers trembled with excitement. For the rest of the game, Keanu kept playing. He didn't do anything amazing, but he kept trying, kept moving, kept passing, and the crowd noticed. When the final whistle blew, the stadium gave a standing ovation. Not just for the score, not just for the charity, but for the night itself, for the feeling that something special had happened. The players gathered in the center of the field. Hugs were exchanged. Jerseys were swapped. Beckham walked over to Keanu and threw an arm around him. "Well done," Beckham said. "You surprised everyone." Keanu laughed again. "Even myself." A reporter ran toward them, camera in hand. "Keanu, can we get a quick word?" Keanu looked unsure. Beckham nodded. "Go on, you've earned it." The reporter raised the mic. "Keanu, how was that? You just helped score a goal in San Siro." Keanu rubbed the back of his neck, smiling humbly. "I don't think I've ever felt that kind of pressure," he said. "But I'm glad I stayed. At first, I didn't think I belonged here. But tonight, something changed. The crowd, they gave me a chance." He looked around the stadium as the lights glowed above. "It's something I'll never forget." The crowd, hearing the words through the speakers, responded with another wave of claps and cheers. Beckham raised Keanu's hand in the air like a champion. And this time, no one mocked him. No one booed. No one called him a clown. They just cheered. As they walked off the field together, Beckham turned to him and said, "You didn't just win their respect. You won their hearts." Keanu looked down, trying not to get too emotional. "Thank you for backing me," he said softly. "Without you, I might have walked out." Beckham shrugged. "That's what friends do. And besides, you handled yourself like a pro." They both laughed. Back in the tunnel, cameras followed them, but Keanu didn't hide this time. He walked with confidence, even waving to some fans on the way out. And in the crowd, the same Milan fan who had heckled him in the beginning now stood up, clapping hard. "He proved me wrong," the man said to his friend. "Respect." That moment was bigger than any movie scene. Keanu Reeves had come to San Siro as an outsider. He was laughed at, insulted, nearly pushed out. But now he was walking out as a hero. The match was over. The stadium lights were still bright, shining down on the green field like stars. Most of the fans were slowly leaving their seats, still talking about the game, the goals, and the surprise of the night, Keanu Reeves. Keanu walked beside David Beckham through the tunnel, heading back to the changing rooms. His jersey was soaked with sweat, but he didn't care. His legs were tired, his heart still beating fast, but there was a small, peaceful smile on his face. He looked over at Beckham. "Thank you," he said softly. Beckham glanced at him with a proud grin. "For what?" "For standing up for me. For not letting me walk away when I wanted to." Beckham shrugged, still smiling. "You didn't need me, Keanu. You just needed someone to remind you that you belonged." Keanu thought about that. Maybe Beckham was right. Maybe all he needed was one person to believe in him. And once he believed it himself, everything changed. They reached the back hallway, where a few reporters waited. But no one rushed at Keanu now. No one asked him if he was lost. They asked for photos, interviews, and even autographs. A young reporter stepped forward and asked, "How did it feel, Mr. Reeves, when the crowd started cheering for you after the assist?" Keanu laughed gently. "Honestly, I thought I was dreaming. But I'm glad it was real." Cameras flashed. Microphones moved closer. "But weren't you nervous after the crowd didn't welcome you at first?" Another reporter asked. Keanu nodded. "Yes, I was. Very. I almost left before the game started. But something inside me said, stay. And someone," he looked at Beckham, "helped me remember why I came here." People clapped. It wasn't loud like in the stadium, but it was warm, real. In the dressing room, Keanu sat on a bench, finally resting. He took off his shoes slowly, stretching his sore feet. His mind replayed the night again and again, the insults, the silence, the first pass, the goal assist, and the cheers that followed. He never thought football would teach him something about life, but it had. It taught him that people might judge you before they know you. It taught him that staying quiet doesn't mean you're weak. It taught him that kindness, like the kind Beckham showed, could change everything. And most of all, it taught him that being brave isn't about fighting back. It's about showing up. Even when no one wants you there. Beckham walked over and sat beside him. Feel good? He asked. Keanu smiled. Better than I have in a long time. Beckham leaned back against the wall. You did something brave tonight. Keanu looked at him, confused. I didn't do much. Beckham shook his head. You stood in front of a crowd that mocked you, and you didn't run. You didn't yell. You didn't fight. You played with heart. That's more than enough. Keanu nodded, his throat tight with emotion. There was a knock on the door. A staff member walked in, holding a football. Mr. Reeves, he said. A few young fans outside want this signed by you. Keanu blinked. By me? Yes, sir. He stood up slowly, took the ball in his hands, and walked outside. There were 5 kids waiting, all around 10 or 12 years old. They weren't holding Beckham posters. They weren't shouting for football stars. They were waiting for Keanu. One boy handed him a pen. You were awesome tonight. Keanu signed the ball, his name shaky but proud. Another kid said, You're not just a movie star now, you're a football star too. Keanu laughed. Let's not go that far. But deep inside, those words touched his heart. After the kids left, Keanu stood in the hallway for a while, just breathing. He could still hear the distant sounds of fans exiting the stadium, but his world felt quiet now. Peaceful. Beckham joined him one last time. Same time next year? He joked. Keanu grinned. Only if you promise to play on my team again. Beckham laughed. Always. They shared a short hug. No big moment, no cameras. Just 2 men from different worlds who found respect and friendship on a football field. That night, Keanu didn't go back to his hotel right away. He stayed near the stadium, looking up at the glowing lights of San Siro one last time. It didn't feel cold anymore. It felt like a memory. A good one. He had walked in as a stranger. He walked out with cheers behind him, and a friend beside him. And that, he knew, was more than any award could give.